Thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate that. And everybody tell me you are a very nice guy, actually. And I'm not going to give you a hard time.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm feeling better already.
Right. So let us start with what exactly Microsoft doing in Africa? You have 3 minutes to tell me what you're exactly doing in Africa.
Well, let me tell you what we're doing, and then let me tell you what I believe is the #1 technology topic that I've had the opportunity to learn about in Africa that I hope everyone in this room will prioritize. We are, of course, all about bringing digital technology, AI, and digital skills to every part of Africa. Since I was here a year ago, probably the most exciting thing, the step that we've taken, is to launch a digital development program. That's what we're calling it. It's all about bringing technology at the lowest cost possible, cheaper than anywhere else in the world, to the public sector in the countries, low income or middle income countries that qualify for international development assistance. And it's not just technology, it's connectivity. We're working with partners to bring connectivity to 100 million additional people across Africa. It's about skills, frankly, often starting with skills for people in government itself. But now, the question that I would ask everybody, what are the 3 most important technology priorities for Africa? In my opinion, I'll tell you what they are. Electricity, electricity, electricity. Try using any computing device without access to electricity. You can use it for some hours, maybe if you're lucky, a couple of days. Now, just the topic I think we have to bring to New York every year, around the world, the developed world, where people are not thinking, in my view, the way they should. One of the many reasons that there is such a divide between the global north and global south is technology over time has not diffused equally around the world. Do you know that it was 141 years ago this month that the first building in New York was lit up by electricity? It was the New York Times building. So here we are 141 years later, and as you all know, this morning, 43% of the people in Africa, 600 million people, woke up without access to electricity. So if we're going to close all of the other divides, let's close the electricity divide. And let's do it with renewable energy, but let's get people the energy they need for everything else that we can bring them.
I think that's a very fair statement. We have been campaigning on the issue of power for Africa for a long time, and the need to exploit our resources really to deal with that. And US had, during Obama, they had this project called Power Africa, and it was complete failure. It did not power anything, actually. And yeah, that probably is a statement about US, how it's dealing with Africa. Obviously, they don't care. We feel that is not a priority at all in the White House or the Congress or anywhere. I hope it's a priority in the business.
I think it has to be. I think for economic development, for business, and from my perspective as an American working with people across the United States or often in Europe, I mean, it's great that the president of Poland is here. As I've met with him, he gets it. He understands infrastructure. He understands how unstoppable Africa can be, but you can't be unstoppable unless you get power.
Brad, you mentioned in your introduction that you're bringing technology at lower cost to Africa. I just want to understand here, if I license one of your products in Kenya, I pay less than what I pay in US?
First, if you are in the public sector, absolutely. Second, if you're in the nonprofit sector, absolutely. Third, if you're in the private sector, probably, but there it's a little more textured. But our first priority is to bring technology to the public sector and the nonprofit sector at a lower price than you're going to find anywhere else.
So again, to just make it clear, so a Kenyan public sector employee will pay less than a US federal government employee.
Absolutely.
Okay. You guys noted this? Okay. Bravo. Okay, thanks. No, I said you're a nice man. I don't have...
Yeah, no, but ask the tough questions.
Yeah, but no, I mean...
You should.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Before we meet, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you before, unfortunately. But last night I went through the website to check what you're doing in Africa. And you had like 4 pillars of main things you're doing there. One of them was infrastructure. And what infrastructure are you doing? Fiber, you're doing, what infrastructure are you doing there?
First and foremost, I think the most important infrastructure that Microsoft provides is in the form of data centers.
Data centers.
Data centers, yeah, because that's really where you're bringing cloud computing to every part of the world. And yeah, we're probably on a path, I would wager, to be the biggest capital investor in data center infrastructure of any organization on the planet, public or private.
How many data centers you invest in Africa?
We have multiple data centers that in South Africa today.
South Africa?
Yeah, and then we are partnering with other companies for other parts of the world.
Can you cope without power in South Africa? I mean, you said no electricity in South Africa, I understand.
Well, you can't, obviously, you can't have a data center unless you're going to have electricity. So and in the world today, when we invest in data centers, we typically invest in the generation of power as well.
Yeah?
Because we've made a commitment that by the middle of this decade, 100% of the electricity for our data centers, it needs to be based on renewable energy. And right now that means in or near the grid. By the end of the decade, it means green electrons directly flowing into the data centers. And so when we look at Africa, basically what we're doing is we're charting a path to think about how do we have data centers either owned or leased or partnered to provide all of our services, including AI, in, say, South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Egypt. We're building out a network. And a lot of this is going to need to be in the early years, as it is right now, investing in partnerships with others. And then there is the connectivity issue. And the connectivity issue, I think, for Africa really has 2 dimensions. First is the fiber, because you've got to get fiber going up and down the continent and across, which is now happening, with a company like Liquid, which we're hugely enthusiastic about.
Why did you not invest in fiber in Africa?
Pardon?
Why you did not invest in fiber in Africa?
No, we do invest in fiber in
invested
Africa.
in fiber.
But it's typically, it might be fiber that we build for ourselves, or it's fiber where we invest with another company, frankly, just to bring to a broader demand. But in addition to fiber, there's what we call last mile connectivity, which is wireless, typically. And so, we've been a big believer in multiple wireless technologies in Africa, including what are called TV white spaces. This is the part of the spectrum that was traditionally used by terrestrial television. It's very well suited for broadband wireless connectivity. We have 10 different projects across Africa in that space. And we see actually, in part, another thing I've had the chance to learn, people in Washington, D.C. are very skeptical when I say this, but it's very true. In my experience, some of the most sophisticated telephone, communications, and IT ministries in the world are in Africa. And I think that is in part because you've been able to leapfrog a legacy bureaucratic structure in other countries. And you've brought into these ministries people with real world experience, which is a great thing. And so you're seeing emerge in countries like Kenya, Egypt, Morocco, South Africa. I think the kinds of promising connectivity strategies that all of Africa is going to need.
Mobile was a great success in Africa, there's no doubt about that. It's a great, that's why I can afford to buy this jacket. You mentioned also on your website that you are supporting startups.
Yeah.
Do you invest in startups, or how do you support them?
It varies. We do invest in some startups. I think, I'll give you an example. There's a company in Kenya called Mwingu. Mwingu we invested in about a decade ago. It is one of the wireless connectivity companies that I mentioned. We don't invest with the goal that we're going to own a large part of the company. We invest to try to kickstart or help them jumpstart their business. And I think our best investments are typically where we lend our name and help that company attract capital from others, whether it's venture capital.
You put your own money.
We put our own money in. We do put our own
How much
money.
is total investment in Africa in this kind of things?
In venture, in startups, it's probably in the order of $100 million or so, or a little bit less. It is, we'll do an investment in a startup and it might be $1 million. It's our ambition and our contribution is not, frankly, in my view, through the amount of money we'll put in and the parts of companies we'll own.
Yeah, we understand you're not a venture capital, etc. But I think you need to step up a little bit. Maybe 100 million is not enough for a company of your size. Let me.
Fair enough.
Let me get in. How many customers do you have in Africa?
I don't know. I know we have 21,000 partners across Africa. I'm sure we have millions of customers when you can include consumers, as well as then small businesses.
Million, maybe 500 million. How many licenses you sold there?
I don't know how many licenses we sold.
Yeah.
I can find out, but I don't know.
Is it like fair to say 400, 500 million maybe?
I would be surprised if it's that high.
Yeah.
Well, look, if you have 1.3 billion people and 600 million of them have no electricity, that means you really have a total addressable market of, call it 700 million people to start with.
It's true. It's true. And well, the following question, of course, which everybody will ask of a company like you, there is a general concern about multinational great companies like yours, tech companies and life science companies as well, who don't pay tax in Africa. You guys have huge revenue coming out of Africa, really good revenue, and but legally, we're not accusing you of doing anything illegal, but you are gaming the system as technical companies, and you pay very little tax in Africa. The G20 appreciated that problem, and it is a real problem. UN, well, guest of UN, estimated that Africa lose about $100 billion every year because of profit shifting and mispricing, etc. And it is legal, but it's not fair. And what do you think, as a representative of one of those giant companies, do you think that's fair?
No, I would say two things about taxes, including in Africa. First, I do think it's right, and I think the world is better, certainly Africa is better, if basically companies pay taxes where they make money.
Yes.
And I think that's a principle, that in the year 2023 is widely accepted in a way that it was not 20 years ago. So you had all this intra-company.
So you agree with the principle that people should pay taxes where sales or profits happen, correct?
Yeah, and I think there's an important nuance that is worth thinking about for a moment, because you said you either pay taxes on profit or you pay taxes on revenue, but you don't pay taxes unless you have profit or revenue. Now, but you said something else that I have never heard anyone in Microsoft say. You said, we have huge revenue in Africa. I wish that were the case. We are huge investors in Africa. I believe strongly in the future. I believe that Africa is unstoppable. I believe that Africa is a good investment. But it is not yet producing huge revenue
This
for a
millions of
company like
license fees,
Microsoft.
etc., where does it go? I mean, you guys making money.
Yeah.
Come on, Brad. Don't
Let's just think about that for a second.
Yeah.
How many devices do you think we sell in Africa?
Oh.
Hardly any. No, we don't sell phones. No, just think for a minute. That's not our business. We're not Apple. We're not selling phones. We're not, a device maker. We have a small, higher-end Surface laptop business. We sell Xboxes. I wish we sold more
Everybody
in
uses
Africa.
Office and
Yeah, and many of them, or at least some of them, pay for it, which is even better. Don't worry. I will love the day when we are making the kind of money in Africa to be a major contributor in taxes. But go back to first principles. Look, if you want to succeed in business, you invest, and then you see your investments yield a return. We are in investment mode.
Yes, but I'm just trying to draw you to this principle of fairness.
Which I endorse.
You agree?
Yeah, it just help.
Okay.
But
can you have a word then with your people there? Because your guys in Microsoft lobbied here to stop regulators forcing company to produce country by country reporting.
Yeah, and
You have to tell your guys in San Francisco that was not right.
Yeah, well, but you know what?
You promise to say that?
Well, if you come to San Francisco, you know, you should go to San Francisco and have this conversation. But we're in Seattle. We're not in San Francisco. So remember that. I mean,
You got me here. Okay. I'll come to Seattle. Okay. Okay. No, I'll come to Seattle to have this conversation. But I think the principle of fairness.
I agree.
Because we cannot just, we lose huge amount of money.
You know what? And look, I'll be one of the first. I'll be one of the first to say, gee, you know, what I'm signing up for in 2023 was not the tax philosophy of 2003, and it is a better and more enlightened world to work the way you describe.
Thank you very much, and I
come to Seattle.
He's a nice guy,
not San Francisco.
But at least he agrees with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.